Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Popcorn Culture. I'm Khai.
I'm Zat.
Zat, I'm not even gonna ask.
It's your favorite comic book of all time!
It's my favorite comic book of all time, and it's now its own sort of mini universe.
It has, with the prequel comics, the movie, the TV show, the sequel comics.
Yeah, so ladies and gents, fanboys and girls, this is it. We're talking about Watchmen. It's highly regarded as the finest piece of graphic narrative literature ever written. It's on number 23 of Time's 100 greatest books you have to read.
It's amazing how you remember that.
Oh man, it's a sales pitch of the century. Alright, Zat, Watchmen. It's synonymous with tragedy, politics. It's synonymous with, right now, being very relevant to where we are today.
Back in the day when Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons wrote this one in 1980.
Fun fact, Alan Moore is actually one of the most, if not the most decorated comic book writer ever. He's written V for Vendetta, From Hell, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Swamp Thing, Miracle Man, Watchmen, just
Top
to name
10.
a few, top 10. He's one of the finest writers in comic books. Anyway, back to what you were saying.
No, like when Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons wrote this in 1985, no one would have expected that over 30 years after, people are still talking about the comic books.
They're still talking about the comic books, and it's because the comic books, not only is it seminal in the sense of what it did for the genre, it's not only tackled an issue that is still relevant till today, it's also because the creators themselves have been very vocal about what they think what happened to the book.
Well, I don't know what Alan Moore thinks about all the new...
I know what he thinks about all the... and I'll talk about that. So, brief history, Alan Moore wrote some of the finest comic books in the 80s, and then he got a job to write, or he wanted to write, a cross-section deconstruction of superheroes.
Essentially,
give them midlife crisis. Give them terrible childhoods.
To this day, a lot of writers and artists have referenced Watchmen as being one of their creative influences in writing their
absolutely
comic books.
See it because it's so multi-layered. It's so dense.
Who would have thought that? Without Watchmen, would you think that Frank Miller would have written Dark Knight Returns?
No, they wouldn't exist. And how many times have you read it?
Oh, dude, I can't.
Same. It's one of those things where you can't count.
It is one of my favorite comic books of all time.
Yeah, I've lost count. So, it's 1984. Alan Moore is writing a story, and he says he wants to use Charlton Comics characters. Charlton Comics characters that were bought over by DC and write them in a story where some of them will die and never see the light of day. And DC said, no, you need to create analogs for each of these characters.
Yeah.
You have to create a version of them that's very similar but not the original version. And we get these characters. We get Rorschach, Night Owl, Silk Spectre, Dr. Manhattan, the comedian, and Ozymandias. He puts them in a world which starts off as a murder mystery. The comedian is killed in New York, and Rorschach, a paranoid, borderline maybe schizophrenic
vigilante. He is our only reference, our POV of sorts.
Yeah, the vigilante is investigating this death and uncovers a larger conspiracy. We're not going to spoil it just in case you've not read it, because it's truly an experience.
It is.
And so, you're reading this book and you realize it's set in an alternate 1985. Richard Nixon is still president, and it's just very scary where America is politically.
And Vietnam is part of the...
Vietnam is the 51st state of the United States, and there's a backdrop of potential nuclear Armageddon, because that was the height of the Cold War. And it's such a beautiful story. It's about these dysfunctional characters who are completely on opposite ends of any spectrum that exists. You have Rorschach, a nutjob vigilante. You have Dan Dreiberg, Night Owl. How would you describe him?
He feels like a washed up superhero of sorts who has who's lost his glimmer of hope when it comes to all these superheroics. After for those who don't know the story, it starts off with him talking with the previous Night Owl, Hollis Mason.
Yes,
and they catch up. They're reminiscing essentially about their old times, and to come from Hollis Mason being an older Night Owl, that's warranted. But Dan Dreiberg, the new Night Owl,
he's barely 50 in the story, and
it seems like he just lost hope with all these this vigilantism.
I just had an idea. He's like a washed up Bruce Wayne in the body of a depressed Clark Kent.
Yeah, you could say so, or a fat Val Kilmer,
or a oof. So for me, he's washed up. He doesn't like this anymore. Then you have Sally Jupiter or Sally Juspectic. the Silk Spectre who took on. So she's like what Hollywood is looking for.
Yeah.
Like a child star who followed the mom's footsteps.
Yeah, the prodigy.
Yeah, the prodigy, and she's Silk Spectre, but she's retired because she's living with John Osterman, Dr. Manhattan,
who is like essentially the only. Who's
essentially, let's call it. He's a god.
He's a god.
He's a god. Let's call
Small
it.
G.
He's a god in this world, and you have Adrian Veidt Ozymandias, the world's smartest man, who basically has predicted humanity for the next 500 years, maybe.
Probably. His influence is like on all these Egyptian
pharaohs, Alexander, Ramesses.
Yeah, and he has made a living out of
he's the world's richest man too.
Yeah, making himself his own conglomerate essentially, making toy action figures
based on him,
books, products based on him, and he's not just the world's smartest man, but he's also one of the most
influential, powerful, everything. He's the greatest man on earth, basically. Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's the backdrop. These are the characters
in a nutshell.
Yeah. What was the first time you read this, and how did you feel about it?
Okay, you'd be surprised when I say this, but I did not actually read the comics until after the movie.
No, this is blasphemous, man. Are you serious?
Yeah. I mean, like when I found out about the movie came out in 2008 by Zack Snyder.
2009, directed by Zack Snyder. Yeah.
When I found out this was about a comic book, that's when I when I looked up in Google.
Right. Hashtag release the Snyder Cut.
Yeah. So it was only after I watched the movie then I looked for the comics, because like the movie has its flaws. I mean, like it's one
the
of the
2-hour version of the film. Okay, we'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But essentially, like I saw the movies first, then I went looking for the books, and when I read the books, I was just
blown away.
I was just blown away. It is literally a deconstruction of the superhero genre.
It's depressing, but I love it.
It is. It's not like one of those superhero comic books.
There's no heroics. There's no golden age.
It's the dark grittiness of people who are familiar with the Dark Knight Returns, essentially.
Yeah, and it's still shaping comics till today. My first experience with Watchmen is very interesting because I had read random Alan Moore comic books in reprints of magazines and stuff like that, and I kept an eye out for that name because I had read a Swamp Thing and I thought, I like this guy. This Swamp Thing is pretty good.
This Swamp Thing dude.
It's amazing. And I had come across, I remember what it was. It was a magazine that reprinted the entire first issue of Watchmen. And I read it and I thought, this is amazing. And I was 15, 16 at the time, and I've not read it again after that. And the film was coming out, and a part of me said, I really do want to read that story again. I want to finish reading Watchmen. And unfortunately, the only way I could read it was digital scans online.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I read Watchmen in 3 different methods. Like the first issue was on a reprint. The second issue, I read it on, I believe it was, at that point, Facebook. Somebody had uploaded onto Facebook. And the third to the final issue, I found a PDF of it online. And I read it. And I'm telling you, it's one of those things. I used to work for my dad in a grocery store. And leading up to the Watchmen film, I could only read a chapter a day in between my lunch break. So I would rush from MD, go to my house, read 1 chapter, get mind blown, go to the store and look after it. And I remember not being able to finish the final chapter before the film. Like the afternoon of the day I watched the film, I only finished chapter 11. I couldn't read chapter 12.
You must have been surprised with the alternate endings between the movie and the...
So at the end of this book, the big monster shows up in chapter 11, but I don't know the fallout. So when I watched the movie, I go, where's the big monster? And so we'll talk about the big monster in a bit, and it wasn't there. And since then, I've owned multiple versions of the story because it's my favorite comic book, as I mentioned before. And it blows my mind that you watched the film first and still love the book, because I consider the film to be a very close visual adaptation of the story.
It is. Even like line to line, like all the
dialogues
between
pretty verbatim.
It is. I mean, like, it's almost cheating by Zack Snyder, but... I remember watching my first experience, not the comics, but with the movies, because that was my first exposure to Watchmen. I remember going to the cinema with I think 3 or 4 friends, and I kid you not, they left not even halfway through the cinema
because they just couldn't stand it.
So the trailer was advertising high octane action. You see Silk Spectre jumping off buildings. You see people dropping from Archie. Like, there's a lot of, it's almost false advertising. But once you go into the cinema and watch it,
it's a political cross-section.
And it's such a slow burn of a superhero movie. It was rare.
It really was.
I mean, at the time, you watch movies like X-Men and Spider-Man.
They get straight into it.
Yeah.
They're beating each other up.
So when I watched it, I kid you not, I was the only one left standing. I was left alone in the cinema while my friends just left because they were just scratching their heads thinking, what's going on? And they weren't the only ones. there were people in the cinema who were like just talking and asking each other like, what's going on, what's this movie about?
It's one of those things.
But the idea, the concepts behind the movie alone, that's what hooked me. And as soon as I finished watching the movie, I went straight home, and I didn't get a physical copy of it. I had to look for scanned PDFs of the comics at home. And when I read it, I was just blown away.
Yeah, there
are no other words.
It's one of the finest comic books ever written. It's one of the finest books ever written.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about the movie, so let's talk about the movie now.
Will look up and shout, "Save us!" And I'll whisper, "No."
Right, so we've been talking about the movie for a while, and we just showed you a bit of a teaser of the film, if you would.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this film. This film was directed by Zack Snyder.
That name alone
is causing ripples across fandom right now.
Yeah.
With the movement of social media.
For the right and wrong reasons.
We'll probably do an episode on that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, Watchmen was directed by Zack Snyder from a script by, I think, Zack Snyder and David Hayter.
Yeah.
And it premiered in 2009 to very lukewarm reviews, I would say. Like, even critics were a bit like, do we like this?
I mean, it's hard. I mean, in this day and age, it's so common for us to see adaptations that were produced and made into TV.
Yes.
I mean, a comic of this magnitude, which has 12 issues, which spans so many, overarching interconnected stories.
Yes.
To make it into a 2 hour and 30
I think it was like 2:15 to 20.
Yeah. 2.5 hour-ish movie. It was monumental.
It really was. And I remember waiting in the cinema and watching it and thinking, I hate this version. Because I just felt a lot of the plot lines were diluted, a lot of the things were cut, and I just got really upset. Like, why would he even do this? Like, why would he cut the story? But growing up now, I realize you have a lot of pressure to make everybody happy as a filmmaker.
Zack Snyder wasn't the first person to try to attempt making this film.
There was a version from Terry Gilliam
and Darren Aronofsky,
and also David Hayter himself shot some footage. Like, it's so crazy the number of people.
I mean, with Zack Snyder's film, he set it in the Cold War era. I remember reading Darren Aronofsky's vision of the film, and he wanted to set it in Afghanistan, Iraq. Set in modern times, so he would bring.
And Terry Gilliam's would be in 1990s with a fight near the Statue of Liberty.
I mean, everyone has their vision of it.
Zack Snyder, I will say, was the closest to the book.
Yeah.
By miles. But here's the crazy part, is that it's not just a 2.5 hour movie.
No.
Right? No, it's because that's where this bad boy comes in. Zack Snyder shot 4 hours worth of footage.
Yeah.
At least.
At
least 4 hours worth of footage. And it's available as the ultimate cut at 3 hours and 45.
Yep.
I want to say.
3 hours and 45.
And I kid you not.
Which includes the motion comic as well.
Which is the Tales of the Black Freighter.
Yeah.
The movie flies past 3 hour 45.
No,
it doesn't feel like it.
It's one of the most true and sincere adaptation of any comic book.
It's a labor of love. I can't believe I'm saying that. But I didn't feel the 3 hour mark. No, like it just pop. It just keeps going, right? Yeah. And one of the highlights of this film, in my opinion, is the two highlights is the casting of Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach, Walter Kovacs, and Billy Crudup as John Osterman was amazing.
I mean, now when you read Watchmen,
it's his voice.
You can't help but Billy Crudup's voice is just that monotonous, almost godly. Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's the Mark Hamill effect. When you read a Batman comic book now,
it's his
Joker
voice.
is Mark Hamill. So this film got a lot of things right, but the big change. So in Watchmen, the original story, spoiler alert, how the world is united with all the chaos is Ozymandias, Adrian Veidt, creates a fake alien.
Yeah.
Fakes a global invasion.
Yeah.
And the world is united because they think there's a bigger threat.
Yeah.
He used this alien, he created this alien in the comics because, like we said, because he wanted to unite the world. Also because if mankind thinks there's a bigger threat, they wouldn't fight each other.
I mean, the alien monster squid landed on New York, killed
3 million people.
3 million people, and left so many casualties. In a sense, they were psychologically, scarred.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's the ending of Watchmen, the comic book. Okay. Now, at this point in the story, when the aliens revealed, Rorschach has written a journal where he outlines everything that happened, and Rorschach, spoiler alert, dies at the end. And the journal, as the story ends, is found in the hands of a newspaper agency. Yeah. So you're left to believe that the world will know the truth about Adrian Veidt and
the New Frontiersman.
The New Frontiersman, a right-wing publication. In the movie, that's changed. The thing that killed people across New York was Dr. Manhattan's energy.
Yeah.
So Adrian Veidt harnessed that energy and killed 3 million people. So to make it look like Dr. Manhattan was the bad guy.
Yeah.
So he left at the end of the story and. It kind of changes it, but it's almost the same.
Its impact is similar.
Yeah,
that it unites the whole world against a singular threat.
Singular threat.
Yeah.
Yes. And for the longest time, Watchmen has been either the comic book or the film. But the last 3 years has shown some crazy development for this world. Because now, bear with us, guys. In the comic books, DC had what they called the New 52.
Yeah.
How would you describe the New 52 in a nutshell?
Well, essentially, it was like a reboot of the DC universe
of the classic DC
of the
universe.
classic post crisis universe.
Please watch the Crisis episode.
And they essentially rebooted it for a new generation of readers.
So the origins were different. Yeah. Everything was changed.
I mean, essentially, the history of the DC universe was crammed into 5 years.
Yes,
essentially, 5 years has happened, has flown past. And everyone's history, from Superman to Batman, Wonder Woman, every DC character was just crammed into a span of 5 years.
Yeah, basically DC Universe was only 5 years old.
To make it like more contemporary.
Accessible,
and accessible as well.
So, the New 52 doesn't get off to a great start.
No.
It's lots of hits and misses. People don't really like it. It was a result of Flashpoint. The Flashpoint paradox, we talked about this before, rebooted the universe. And a lot of people were like, you know what, I'm getting bored. And one of the biggest problems was continuity was gone.
Yeah.
Like a Batman story that says takes place 4 years ago is not the same as Justice League.
It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, to cram everything in those 5 years, a lot has happened in Batman's history over at the time 70 plus years.
Yes.
It was impossive for them to just cram everything in 5 years.
So basically it was a lot of continuity errors, everything. And Jeff Johns, the former chief creative officer of DC Comics, established DC Rebirth. DC Universe Rebirth is meant to bring the heroes back to the classic heroism. It's optimistic. It's not greedy and boring. And do you remember reading Rebirth for the first time?
Oh, dude, I was blown away.
Right?
I mean, the biggest selling point, the biggest high point of the comic was Wally West.
Yes.
The return of Wally West.
Wally West, one of the Flashes, was missing from the New 52.
Yeah.
And the story of the Rebirth opens with Wally West narrating where he's gone.
Yeah.
And this is the kicker. He says something has disrupted time itself.
And at the time, we never knew where it was going to lead up to.
Yes. And then in the final shots, there's a clock being repaired on Mars, which is where Dr. Manhattan's supposed to be. And the clock moves 1 second to the back, and there's a quote from Watchmen that says, "Nothing ever ends." And that was the very first time that collective nerd minds across the world was blown, because that meant the Watchmen characters were alive, and somehow that world is responsible for something.
And it also meant that they're part of the DC universe in some ways.
It
makes Watchmen universe canon to the current DC
whereas
universe.
it was standalone the entire time.
Exactly.
And the crazy part is, one of the final shots is Batman holding this famous badge.
In the Batcave.
Of
all places.
Because this is the shot that started Watchmen the book.
Yeah.
So Batman holds the badge. So just to recap, we're reading this universe about Wally West.
Yeah.
He says time is missing. That's how the New 52 was born. Batman finds the badge in his Batcave. That's the crazy thing. And that was such a crazy opener for a new era of superheroes. And then there was no follow-up.
No.
For a year.
Until we get the button.
The button is Batman and the Flash, the detective and two detectives investigating the badge.
Yeah.
And do take it away. What do we learn?
Those 4 issues. I mean, the first 3 issues were amazing because it investigated so much about not just Batman's, it explored Batman's detective skills, finding out what this button meant to the whole DC universe, because it felt out of place. Remember, he was computing and it was just not of this world. And I mean, the Flash, the art was a bit jarring in my opinion.
It really wasn't the best.
But the story with the Reverse Flash, oh, dude,
That was amazing.
that was amazing.
So the Reverse Flash comes back, the Button does some gizmo, and it ends with a teaser for a story called Doomsday Clock,
yeah,
which was said to be an official sequel to Watchmen.
Watchmen.
But we were skeptical because this was not the first time since the 80s that DC tried to do something with the Watchmen characters, was it?
They made a prequel comic
A series of prequels.
called Before Watchmen, which explored the lives of all these heroes.
The Comedian, Rorschach, Night Owl,
Minutemen. They
Minutemen,
even made
the original.
a one issue of Moloch.
Yeah. Now, Before Watchmen is a sore spot for a lot of fans because 90% of the titles that came out were terrible.
Bar Minutemen.
The one that was good.
By
Minutemen,
Darwin
the original predecessors to the Watchmen
Watchmen.
characters in that world,
Yeah.
was beautifully written. I consider that canon. I don't know about you.
No, I consider it canon as well. It's just
This is where it gets confusing. If you consider Minutemen canon, we have questions for this section later on. Okay, so remember that
Okay.
you're saying Minutemen is canon.
don't you?
Of course, absolutely, but
Okay.
I consider everything canon.
Yeah.
You know? So Minutemen was a great read that was a prequel to Watchmen. And, so back to 2016-17, we get an announcement that Doomsday Clock is coming out. It's going to be a sequel to the comic book, and it's going to merge the world of Watchmen and DC. How did you feel?
Again, skeptical.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to feel. I mean, like by merging essentially the universe of Watchmen with DC, you're taking something very sacred and holy to a lot of people. I mean,
And potentially ruining it.
Yeah, I mean, Alan Moore, you know what his opinion is towards his own property. I
Yes.
mean, DC knew that this was like a gold mine.
Yeah.
So they thought about prequels, sequels, spin-offs, whatever.
Action figures.
And Alan Moore was against all of it.
Because in the 80s, Alan Moore was promised that he will get the rights back to Watchmen when Watchmen went out of print. The problem was Watchmen's still in print. It's such a shame.
Yeah.
So, 2017, we get the announcement that Doomsday Clock is coming out, and the first issue hits November 2017. And it's a slow burn.
It's a slow burn. I mean, I've read Doomsday Clock just recently.
Yes.
And the first few issues, it wasn't just the first issue, but the first few issues alone.
Yeah.
It was a lot of setup.
Yeah.
It was leading to something, and I mean that's the very nature of Watchmen comic books.
Yeah, it's
They're
leading to something.
It's slow burn. It's political. It's supposed to leave breadcrumbs for you to figure out where
Yes.
this is going. It's like a noir.
Yeah.
It's a noir crime story in a sense.
And the concept was that Dr. Manhattan is gone.
yeah,
And Ozymandias, again, is looking for him. Right?
yeah.
But sometime around 2018, the series starts to get hit by a lot of delays.
It was supposed to finish. It was supposed to be a year worth of story where
No.
the books would come out every month for a whole year.
Nope.
But the final issue just
Recently
came out.
So it's been 2 years.
2 years.
And it's been marred by a lot of delays. And here's the crazy thing. Last year, we get another Watchmen-related news.
Oh, HBO released its
HBO.
own TV series. And at the time when they announced it, no one knew what it was about.
No,
one
they
knew
just
if
said
it
it's
was-
Watchmen.
Yeah, they just said it was Watchmen. No one knew if it was an adaptation of the comic
Book
books.
or sequel, what it was.
Like was it a different alternate universe where they adapted it for the modern age?
Yeah.
I mean, no one knew where this was going.
Again, this whole thing has been so confusing. So if you're keeping track, ladies and gents, it's a book in 85,
Yeah.
a movie in 2009, which was actually pretty a good adaptation. We were all happy.
Yeah.
A few years later, DC releases a series of prequels. People weren't happy.
Lukewarm. At
We
best.
pretend like that never happened except Minutemen.
Oh, with Minutemen, dude.
And then another few years later, we're reading DC Universe Rebirth about restoring heroes and explaining what went wrong with the New 52.
I mean, who would have thought the idea to introduce the Watchmen characters into the DC universe?
Jeff Johns. He's a genius. He wrote Green Lantern, the best run on Green Lantern, best superhero run on anything. I will argue.
Okay, that's because you're pro Green Lantern.
I will argue.
I can't argue you with that.
So and then you get the tease that Dr. Manhattan was involved with the creation of a new universe, right? And then the Button explores the Button, Batman and Flash, and they find out that there are different worlds out there, and something has been changing everything. Like a destiny has been rewritten.
The question is why?
Yes. So the question we were left with was why. Doomsday Clock comes out, Dr. Manhattan's missing, and we're still not figuring it out. As we're in 2018, we're still not figuring it out. And then HBO goes, we got our own version of the show.
Yeah.
And, we'll get into that right now, but here's a clip from HBO's Watchmen.
Are we safe?
I guess we have ourselves a reckoning.
Alright, so that was a clip from HBO's Watchmen. Alright, so we're just gonna talk about how HBO announces a TV show based on Watchmen.
Yeah.
DC is doing Doomsday Clock. Now, Doomsday Clock could not keep up with the schedules.
Well, what did you think of Doomsday Clock when they first announced it?
I was excited. Anything with Watchmen, I'm on board.
Really?
And it was Jeff Johns. He's an amazing writer.
Okay, again, more Jeff Johns bias.
Somebody's a hater, but yeah, I was excited because I thought I want to see it because at that point, Rebirth and The Button were amazing.
Yeah.
And I thought I want to see more of this, and it was a slow burn. So by the time I think Doomsday hits like issue, like when Watchmen the show premiered, Doomsday had already released issue 11.
Yeah.
You know, Doomsday was like at issue 11. Ladies and gents, we were like one issue away from the end, and HBO finished the entire series
Before Doomsday
12 even came out.
Yeah.
Right. So the story of Doomsday Clock is. Superman and Dr. Manhattan are supposed to have a huge showdown. That's why there's a Superman logo on this clock here.
It was teased from like the very beginning.
Yeah. And in issue 1, Ozymandias leaves their Earth to the DC world. He arrives with 2 new characters, Mime and Marionette, and
Reggie.
And Reggie, the new Rorschach.
The new
And as he arrives there, issue 2 is Mime and Marionette go around, they're in Gotham, Ozymandias meets Lex Luthor, and at the end, Comedian is alive.
Dude,
at Lex Tower, right? Again, I'm like, what? How? Issue 3, Comedian was falling. Turns out Dr. Manhattan pulled him out of time and put him in the DC world.
Yeah.
And he's been waiting for Ozymandias. At the end of issue 3, Rorschach meets. At the end of issue 2, Batman meets Rorschach.
Yeah.
At the end of issue 3, Batman has read Rorschach's journal from the first book.
While Rorschach is in Arkham Asylum.
No. Then he puts Rorschach in Arkham Asylum.
That was issue 3.
Yeah, so he puts Rorschach. So you guys, please keep up, right? While there's some distrust going on in the world with superheroes, again. And then issue 4, Rorschach, i.e. Reggie, is in Asylum. He thinks about the first time he was in an asylum where he met Mothman, and it's my favorite story.
Oh no.
The Moth to the Flame. That was a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And then issue 5, Joker meets Mime and Marionette. Something happens, and then this is the part where I get a bit disappointed because it starts going down a bit.
Yeah, because issue 6 they explored the origins of Mime and Marionette.
Again, it's good, but it could have been done in a single issue with issue 5.
Yeah.
Issue 7, we finally meet Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan's finally there, and he tells people something, right? And at the end, he says he sees Superman punching him, and he doesn't see anything else, and he believes he's gonna die.
He can't see the future anymore.
Yeah, which means he may die.
I mean, it was either him being killed by a Superman or he destroys the universe.
Yes, either one of those things. So it's a great premise.
Yeah.
Issue 8, there's some Russian political situation going on, and Superman's involved, and some people die. Again, it drops the ball a bit.
Yeah.
And issue 9, the Justice League, Justice League Dark, everybody, Titans, goes to Mars to fight Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing fight.
It is.
I
would have liked to see more though.
Yeah, and then it kind of fizzles out when Dr. Manhattan kind of deconstructs their reality again.
Yeah.
Issue 10, he finally explains what's going on.
Oh, that was an amazing issue, dude.
10 issues though. It took 10 issues for them to explain what he did to the DC universe. And he explains that every time DC Comics made a change to Superman, he changed the world.
Yeah.
Because Superman is the anchor for the DC universe. Beautiful story. Way too late.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see how Superman's origins in a way changes every time Dr. Manhattan meddles with
so Dr. Manhattan is basically editorial in DC, the metaverse. And issue 11 is kind of a follow-up where Dr. Manhattan has been leaving a personal photograph everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
It's issue 12 that's supposed to be the closing chapter for these two worlds that I just went, why? Because, okay, so this is spoiler talk.
Yeah.
Issue 12, you can take it away.
Well, essentially, the showdown between Superman and Dr. Manhattan isn't a showdown at all.
Never happened.
Because you have all these supervillains led by Black Adam from Kandak coming to wherever they were fighting.
Metropolis.
I think so. And it's a showdown between Superman and all these heroes, and he's just there, Dr. Manhattan is standing there. and Superman was asking him, "What are you doing? Why aren't
Help
you
me out,
helping out?"
yeah.
And then he was like, "I can't do anything." I mean, that's always been the core characteristic of Dr. Manhattan, that
Because
he
he
doesn't
sees
meddle.
time unfold and he doesn't involve himself.
Yeah, he's just a passenger, so he's just observing
Yes.
how time unfolds. And as we go on to the issues, we realize that, you know, him seeing Superman's heroism, that him being the light of hope for all these different multiverses, he essentially
undoes himself. Yeah.
It's
He writes himself out of the story because he can never be the superhero that Superman is.
yeah. I mean, and apparently Ozymandias is claiming that this was his grand plan all along. It's a tough pill to swallow, because
For those of you keeping track, essentially we waited 2 years for a love letter to how great Superman is.
but it just didn't execute. It wasn't
No.
executed really well, though.
They should have done this at issue 6.
They could have.
They could have done this halfway through the story. I read it and go, why? It's well written, but why?
And the art, dude, Gary Frank does
Kills
amazing.
it out of the park every time.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's almost as close to what Dave Gibbons drew in the original Watchmen.
And I'm reading this and I go, I waited 2 years for this?
Yeah.
And okay, so that's the crazy part, but in between this, HBO released their version of Watchmen. Go for it.
So, in this HBO TV series, though, it's essentially a sequel to the original comic books. So for those who have not seen the TV show and are, curious to know what's going on, you won't know what's happening unless you've read the comic books. So it's 2019 now, set about 30 plus years after the events of 85, and we see
it takes place in
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And essentially all police officers are
have to
wearing
wear
masks.
masks, which is a very interesting commentary on the modern. It's on 2019 itself.
Yeah, exactly. And
because of police brutality and stuff.
And then you see all these criminals of sort called the 7th Cavalry,
which are white supremacists
who are wearing Rorschach masks
because of his extreme right-wing beliefs. But I don't ever think it was racist.
No, it wasn't. And you see, they're taking the concept of what Rorschach thought. I mean, a fraction of what he thought,
and then dispute it to their.
Yeah. So it follows again a police officer who's also a mass vigilante, Angela
Sister
Abar,
Knight, yeah.
who's also known as Sister Knight, and it tracks her investigation in the beginning, because at the end of the first episode, one of the chief of police
is found dead.
Judd Crawford is killed by supposedly be a man, a 100-plus-year-old man
in a wheelchair.
So again, similar to what the first issue of the Watchmen, it tracks a murder.
Yes.
As the episode develops, we see Laurie Jupeshik now working for the anti-vigilante
Spectre,
task.
is Laurie Blake.
Yeah, now she's taking on the mantle of Laurie Blake, and her name Laurie Blake, and she's working for the FBI as the lead for the anti-vigilante task force. And so she's been sent from Washington to Langley, or whatever,
Langley, Virginia,
to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to investigate this murder.
Yeah, and one of the central things again in this one is different because we also see, I'm forgetting his name now.
Who?
Jeremy Irons.
Oh, Ozymandias.
He has Ozymandias.
From the first episode up until the finale, he is somewhere that we don't know.
Yeah.
It's only revealed until the very end. I won't say it yet because we haven't seen it.
He's in a castle.
Yeah.
He's living on a castle and he's trying to escape, but he's old.
Yeah.
He's very old. And we don't really know what's happening with him. While in Tulsa, Oklahoma, race tension is causing police to wear masks, like Izzat said, and then 7 Cavalry, white supremacists are armed and they're dressed as Rorschach.
Yeah.
Amid all this, there's belief that Dr. Manhattan is somewhere out there.
Yeah. He's not on Mars as shown in the show where there's a news footage of him like standing on Mars doing something. But as it turns out, there is a belief that he's on Earth in Tulsa, Oklahoma
as a man,
disguised as a man.
Yeah.
So, as the story develops, without I don't want to spoil it. Should I spoil it?
Should we spoil it? Okay. Basically, we're gonna spoil it. Angela Abar, Regina King, was married to Dr. Manhattan the entire time.
Yeah.
He was dressed as Carl Abar, her husband, and episode 8 tracks how that happened.
That was one of the best episodes.
It was. He saw himself falling in love with her. That's why he went to her.
Yeah.
Because he can see all of time and all of, across all of space. and it just created a cycle of a chronological cycle where everything that Dr. Manhattan did in the future affected the past. Everything he spoke to about in Angela in the future affected the past. And the 100-year-old man that supposedly killed the chief of police,
who turns out to be Angela's grandfather that she never knew.
Was the original Hooded Justice in Minutemen. So the original Minutemen was Hooded Justice, Night Owl 1, Silk Spectre 1, Captain Metropolis, Dollar Bill, Mothman, and the Silhouette.
Thank you.
So
and the comedian.
And the comedian for a while. So suddenly we have a different version of Hooded Justice in the TV show.
Because this whole time, it's a beautiful retcon, in my opinion. Because
episode.
Who would have thought that the man wearing the Hooded Justice, the Hooded Justice hero,
was a black man.
Was a black man this whole time.
Who put on white makeup to look white. So everybody thought he was white.
I mean, it's a beautiful commentary about racial tensions back in the day.
And also how black history has been whitewashed.
Exactly.
It's beautiful. And then, okay, so again, we're rambling on. Cal Abar, which is Angela's husband, is Dr. Manhattan. He gets captured at the end of episode 8. And then in episode 9 of Watchmen, the final episode, you can explain this because you were very skeptical about Damon Lindelof from the beginning.
I mean, okay. Damon Lindelof, he can write, he has great ideas when it comes to writing. But all these plots that he tries to plant, sometimes or more often than not, doesn't lead to anywhere. I'm talking about you. So essentially, he writes all these different characters. There's essentially a plot for between the 7th Cavalry and a character named Lady True who bought Adrian Veidt's company, and he's one of the richest, like a trillionaire conglomerate. Who essentially, they're battling over stealing Dr. Manhattan's powers, essentially. So, at the end of it, essentially the ending is neither of them getting the powers of Dr. Manhattan, but he plants his powers in a sense in an egg, and Angela eats it. And we don't know whether she can walk on water or not. I mean, they tease a lot. Okay, for one, this is like, I know this might be minor, but who the hell is Loop Man?
Loop Man was never explained.
He was teased in episode 4, I think.
4 or 5.
4. I remember because episode 3 was the episode with Laurie. With the Laurie focused episode, and it was teased in episode 4. Like, I think maybe it could have been episode 3, but we see this Sister Knight chasing Loopman in broad daylight,
and we never see him again.
And he just slides into a sewer, and we never see him again.
What
the hell was that about?
So if you guys are keeping track, in 1985, Dr. Manhattan disappears. Right? In 2016, he is said to be making the New 52. He created the new world of DC Comics. In 2017, he is going to meet Superman. In 2019, he meets Superman and writes himself out of existence at the end of Doomsday Clock.
That's essentially the whole purpose of Doomsday Clock.
Because he realizes he can never be as good as Superman. In another world on HBO, he married Regina King.
And has been hiding.
And he dies and puts his powers in an egg for Regina King. Okay. So this is the question right here. How many sequels does it take to ruin Watchmen? Because we were led to believe the HBO show and the Doomsday Clock will somehow converge. No, it's 2 different sequels. The same story has 2 different sequels that have nothing to do with each other.
Both ended around the same time as well. And I mean, initially Watchmen was, it was received with rave reviews.
The TV show?
The TV show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, it's one of the finest TV shows I've seen.
And it is. It's just, I mean, I know I've asked you this before, and I'll ask it to the audience. Do you consider the Watchmen TV series canon?
No. Because Watchmen should live in comic books. It's not canon for me. And even though it references more events in the show than the movie did. Like the alien, the squid alien. I can't consider it canon, man. There's so much fan fiction in this. It's a great story.
It's a whole season of fan service, essentially.
And it's retconning so many things. I loved the story. I loved seeing Ozymandias in his comic accurate outfit. I loved that episode in Vietnam where Dr. Manhattan meets Angela for the first time. I loved the Hooded Justice episode. I just cannot consider this canon at all. Because my biggest problem is Rorschach in 1985 writes about the big conspiracy he uncovered of Adrian Veidt.
And no one mentions it.
And no one believes it in this world.
No one believes it.
Like, Adrian Veidt has not been prosecuted for the crimes he committed. I don't believe that, man. I really don't believe that a big conspiracy like that would go unnoticed.
And also with the Ozymandias character, I find it very hard to believe that he feels so, I don't want to call it vulnerable in a sense, because his whole grand plan for this global utopia to unite all countries has failed in a sense.
In the TV show?
In the TV show.
Yeah, because he's like a bitter old man in Xandar. Is it Xandar? No, Xandar is from Marvel. What am I talking about? In the Arctic Retreat. I'm forgetting the name.
Karnak. Dude.
Karnak. Xandar is from Guardians of the Galaxy. He's on Karnak, bitter.
Yeah, and the scene, again, spoiler alert, where he has a conversation with Dr. Manhattan, already now as Abar.
Yeah.
As Carl Abar. And him, like, wallowing in sorrow and, like,
self-pity.
Being so pathetic. Like, I want a world to my own, I want paradise, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He ends up being there, and after a year, apparently, like, after a year when he celebrated, he was all happy. A year after that, he was just so miserable.
Yeah.
Not having someone to compete with, someone to challenge him intellectually.
And even then, he didn't do much when Dr. Manhattan came about.
No, not, like...
He, again, washed up.
The finale, like the penultimate episode in episode 8 was beautiful. It set up so much.
Yeah.
But
they dropped the ball.
The finale, they literally dropped the ball in the finale because I felt they could have done more episodes.
Same thing with me. When I read Doomsday Club, I go, 11 was better than 12.
Right?
And that's the crazy thing. Like, we're stuck having to choose our sequel. Again, so this convoluted timeline has a prequel. This world, Watchmen, has a prequel. It's got a comic book sequel, and it's also got a TV show sequel.
Yeah.
The problem is...
Okay, so which one do you consider canon then?
I don't consider Watchmen HBO canon.
Okay.
I really don't. I mentioned this before. I cannot believe that Adrian Veidt got away with his crimes.
That's your main sticking point.
No, there's no way. Like, Rorschach's journal was published.
Yeah.
So Doomsday Clock, in that first issue, when the world of Watchmen is shown burning because Adrian Veidt's lie has been uncovered, I believe that. I buy that.
Yeah.
So for me, my sequel canon is Doomsday Clock.
Regardless of the quality
the ending, at this point, yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
I have to go with the TV show, dude.
Whoa! What?
The TV show.
Serious?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't, because I have the main problem I have with the comic books of Doomsday Clock is the ending. Why on earth would Dr. Manhattan write himself off? This is the man who has been living this whole time knowing that he's like an omniscient presence.
Yeah.
Thinking he is in fact a god. And decides to write himself out of existence
because Superman influenced him.
It's contradicting to his nature. I mean, again, it's a neat ending, but it felt completely
like
against
what he stands for.
And Mime and
Marionette were a waste of time.
I mean, like, of all the people that had to bring into this,
they brought those two.
And then other than Dr. Manhattan and to a certain extent Ozymandias.
Did you feel Batman was kind of useless in this?
Dude. I was hoping for more Batman and more Flash.
Nothing.
As teased upon in the button.
Yeah, nothing.
And we get nothing.
Nothing.
And they spent a lot of time with other characters, like again with Black Adam and Kandak, Firestorm.
Too much. They could have simplified it.
Yeah, so again, it's great that they reference like the Crisis on Infinite Earths in Doomsday Clock and all these other, events that make it, I don't know, canon in a way.
Yeah.
The whole multiverse, the metaverse.
Yeah.
But to what end?
So you're saying you prefer
the TV show over Doomsday Clock?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but that ending for the TV show was terrible.
True, but here's my question: do you think they should make a season 2?
They can't. With what? You can't have Watchmen without the Watchmen.
Without Dr. Manhattan?
Without Dr. Manhattan.
We don't know when Dryberg is. Dan is still there. He's under custody under the FBI for those, who don't know.
For me, Watchmen is about Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan.
Okay.
It's about one man trying to save the world, one man who chooses not to.
Yeah.
That's Watchmen for me.
Okay.
That's Doomsday Clock. He's looking for John to save the world, but John doesn't care until he meets Superman. Okay. Here's my question to you, though.
But it's a weak characterization of both Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias.
I'm not saying it's the best. Okay?
Which is why
it's because of what I'm about to ask you that I can never accept the TV show as canon.
Okay.
You said you think Minutemen is canon.
Yeah.
You said so.
Yeah.
You also think the HBO TV show is canon.
Okay.
In the Minutemen book, the comedian kills Hooded Justice. At the end, he snaps Hooded Justice's neck. That's why in the original book, I assumed Hooded Justice was never seen from ever again.
Yeah.
Because he is missing in the original book. But in the HBO show, he is Angela Abar's grandfather and very much alive.
I'm counting 2 places. It's an alternate universe.
Oh no,
no,
dude,
because
no.
fine. Minutemen is I can't.
You can't
Minutemen.
not say it's canon. It's an amazing story.
Yeah, it is. Well, the rest were trash.
Yeah.
But I just love the Hooded Justice story in the TV show.
I do too,
it's
dude.
Just too good.
It's one of my favorite episodes of any TV show.
Yeah.
But
Easily.
it cannot be canon legally. I don't even know if illegal. Technically, it can't be canon because Hooded Justice died in Minutemen.
Okay.
That story.
Okay, here's a question for you. Which was better, the TV show or Doomsday Clock?
Oh, I hate this question.
Okay, fine. TV show it might not be canon.
Wait, which was better? Watching the build-up? The comic book.
Dude.
Issue 4, 7, 10, and 11 of the books gave me goosebumps that Watchmen did. Issue 4 being the story about the moth and the flame.
Okay.
Which is told from Reggie's perspective. Okay? Issue 7, when the last 3 pages, the first few pages is John talking about how he moved the lantern away from Alan Scott.
Yeah.
Gave me goosebumps at how well Jeff Johns got into the head of Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
10 is one of the finest comic books I've ever read, explaining the metaverse. 11, about the photograph as the breadcrumb across time and space.
Yeah.
Something else about those 4 issues.
But dude, the TV show though, episode 5, The Origins of the Hooded Justice.
No, that's 6.
Sorry, 6.
Yes.
6, The Origins of the Hooded Justice.
One of the finest TV episodes ever made.
Episode 5, The Looking Glass. His story as when he first experienced the squid. I mean, to actually see the squid on TV, dude.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that we got to see that?
Again, what else is there?
Episode 3, the Lori episode. That was pretty good. We talked about it. It was one of the best.
Okay, so you have 3, 5, 6. What's next?
Episode 8, dude.
Episode 8.
That's the
right?
Dr. Manhattan one.
So 4 out of 9 episodes were amazing.
And yours was 4 out of 12.
4 out of 12. They can always continue this story if they want it right next month for the comic book. If they wanted to, next month, they could go to Jeff Johns, we need an epilogue chapter, and he'll write it. With the TV show, they've left they have very little left for season 2.
Dude, who
Dr.
knows?
Manhattan's dead.
Well,
He's...
you never know.
Okay, let's look at it this way. Which was a cheaper ending? No!
Clock, dude.
No! Dude, really? Angela's feet floating over water was not cheap?
Okay, here's the thing. Which was the worst... We're going back and forth. Okay, which was the worst characterization of Dr. Manhattan? Or better characterization of Dr. Manhattan? Doomsday Clock or Watchmen the TV show? Because both fail in some places.
The highlight for me of Dr. Manhattan's... if that's the question, it's Doomsday Clock. He's the best. Why? He decided to play God, literally.
Okay.
Realized he wasn't all that.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end, it's just how he told Lori in the first book. He said, I knew you were, do you not see, something about how you're so important to me that I abandoned humanity the day you left me. There's a part of him that's still human. There's a part of him that still believes in miracles. Because when he came to New York, he says, oh, this is amazing. I never expected it.
Yeah.
And he tells Lori that she's a thermodynamic miracle. That's the first book.
Yeah.
That, when he sees Superman and he has that, I finally see hope now.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, that's very interesting. It's just how it went after that I went, no. Okay?
Okay.
You cannot tell me that scene in the HBO show where Yahya Abdul-Mateen starts almost crying because he's in love with Angela and says, I will always love you or something like that. Okay. You cannot tell me that is Dr. Manhattan. No.
So you're saying...
I'm saying between the two, that's less Dr. Manhattan.
Okay.
Because he's like, "You're the most important thing that's ever happened to me," and he dies. Like, no, he doesn't express himself that way. He expresses himself from a distance.
Well, he did explain that this is the first time he felt fear since 1959.
In the Gila Flats, New Mexico.
I mean, again, it's almost a parallel to what he felt as seeing hope for the first time in the longest time in Doomsday Clock.
Yes.
Him feeling fear in the TV show.
I'm not doubting that. I just, like, bro, if you're Dr. Manhattan, you should have seen that coming.
Well, he was in like a lithium prison thingy, whatever, in the TV show.
No, but he could see everything else happening.
Yeah.
He couldn't see that. There was no mention of tachyon particles.
It was explained in the TV show, dude.
Which one?
The part where the whole prison thingy was made out of the lithium batteries, and it skewed his perception of time.
Yeah, but why didn't he see it before he got caught?
Because he was Carl Avar.
You mean for that 5 minutes that he wasn't?
Or maybe he saw it and he still let it happen. Because that's how things were supposed to happen.
This is the problem. This is the problem, man. Like, I am sticking to Doomsday Clock.
Okay.
Because, again, like, look, man, this is Dr. Manhattan, man.
Okay.
You're trying to tell me to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Let's just say, we'll admit that both has its flaws.
Yeah.
And both have its strengths.
It does.
Both have poor, not the whole character, but some poor characterization of Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias.
Yes.
Because I actually did not like. I mean, as bad as Ozymandias was in the TV show, for me he was much worse in Doomsday Clock because it seemed like he was just planning things out of the fly, dude.
Yeah.
Like the Ozymandias in the Watchmen
is a mastermind.
It seemed like in Doomsday Clock
he just wished for the best. Yeah.
He was just desperate. I mean, like, dude, seriously, world's smartest man.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair, but I will say there is something about seeing the Justice League on Mars facing off against Dr. Manhattan.
The first few pages of issue 9. Yeah.
There is something about that.
Like you see Justice League Dark, the
Titans.
Bat Family, Titans.
There is something about seeing them on Mars facing off against Dr. Manhattan that I cannot shake out of my system.
I would have liked to see more because not all the characters are completely utilized.
Yeah, it wasn't.
You see Guy Gardner, you see Zatanna.
He broke a Green Lantern ring.
Okay.
Like oh wow.
Yeah.
Like it's again like they dropped the ball with the ending, but I will still say the road there has been less frustrating than the TV show because I really hated the last episode. I'm like, what is going on?
No, I agree with you.
And the grand plan, Ozymandias' grand plan is to use the squids again, baby squids this time.
Yeah.
Like a Gatling gun from heaven. I was like, dude, come on, no.
Yeah.
There could be more to this. So I love the fact that we're disagreeing. To be honest.
No. It's true. I mean, like I told you that I am not a huge fan of Damon Lindelof. You know that for a fact. But somehow, after reading Doomsday Clock,
you prefer the HBO version.
I prefer the HBO version because, I mean, like to see. I mean, like and you've read the Pedopedia articles. Yes. I mean, it creates such a huge, layered history about what happened to these characters. Like what happened to Laurie after she took on the mantle as the comedian.
Yeah, she was a comedian.
Dan Dryberg and their vigilantism stories and stuff. I mean, there was just so much more to it. Like Damon Lindelof really thought it through for once. It's just that his execution for the finale pissed me off.
Yeah, I hated that.
It was an upward trajectory. It was just.
It really was. It peaked and then it was terrible.
Whereas in Doomsday Clock, like probably half of the story, it was just
built up and never paid off.
Like, where are we going with this story? Like, I was thinking to myself, Johns, just tell me a straightforward story.
Yeah.
Don't be too Alan Moore Watchmen-y and just, play to your strengths.
Yeah, and it's disappointing, isn't it? Like, we love this story. We love Watchmen, and we want to see more from there. Yeah. But first the prequels, now Doomsday, and now the HBO show.
I mean, I know when the hardcover issue of all 12 issues of Doomsday comes out, I'm gonna buy it.
I'll get it too. Here's the question: would you watch a second season?
That really depends. Who did they focus on?
Exactly. I feel like there's nothing left.
Because if it's about these characters now, no. But I would like to see the adventures of the comedian and Dan Dryberg.
Like between Watchmen and the... Yeah.
So it would be somewhat of an anthology instead of like by season by season.
Here's also another fun fact. I always thought that because it's a visual medium, the TV show should be a sequel to the film.
Yeah.
But it's a sequel to the comic book proper, like in terms of the squid.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy part. I just realized that the film Doomsday Clock could be a sequel to the film version of Watchmen. Because there's no mention of the squid.
No, wait, there was.
Was there?
Yeah, Reggie.
Yeah.
When the two cars got
into
an accident.
Yes, he saw the squid.
Yeah, the image of the.
Nope. So either way, you gotta pick your medium.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to pick your medium.
I
Okay.
remember that
So what's Minutemen canon for you?
Yeah,
Canon.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to.
Watchmen canon. The book.
Obviously, yeah.
Movie, recommend or no?
If it's the ultimate cut, yes.
Okay, recommend the film. Okay.
If you have 3 hours and 40-ish minutes to spare, yes.
So your Watchmen story, your Watchmen marathon will be Minutemen the book,
Yeah.
Watchmen the book, and then HBO the TV show.
Yes.
Okay. My Watchmen marathon will be Minutemen the book, Watchmen the book,
Doomsday Clock.
Rebirth, The Button, Doomsday Clock.
Okay.
And on the side, I'll probably check out the HBO show when I can.
Right.
Because I feel like it's not a story I can keep going back to and find new things.
Okay. Yeah. Once you've seen it,
that's it.
Yeah.
But with Doomsday Clock, I feel if I were to go back and reread it, I'll find new things. It won't change the ending.
No.
It may change the journey.
For me, the frustrating part of it is that Rebirth and The Button sets up so much. I mean, like, it's essentially Jeff Johns doing a Damon Lindelof.
Oof. That's probably the only connection these two have. Alright, so that's probably what we're covering for Watchmen now. Would you recommend somebody to pick up Doomsday Clock, though?
If they're a fan of the comic books, then yes.
Okay,
if you're a fan of the comic books, you've read Rebirth, you've read The Button, then it's worth having a read at Doomsday Clock and see how it ends.
I would recommend the HBO TV show.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying it's not a good show. It's a good show.
Okay.
It's just fan fiction. Because there's a lot of things there that undoes the comic books. I will say that much.
Yeah.
Okay? But here's the kicker. It's very good television.
No, it's one of my favorite TV shows of this year.
And yeah, I think it's my favorite TV show of the year. You see, it's crazy. I'm putting it at number 1. I'm putting it above Mandalorian. I'm putting it above The Boys. I still don't think it's canon. You see that? It's true, man. It's the best TV show I've had this year.
No, I can't argue with that. I'm just thinking about the TV shows I've seen this year.
I've seen Mindhunters and stuff, but Watchmen...
We'll probably do an episode on TV shows.
Yeah, it's the best show I've seen this year.
Okay.
I still don't think it's canon. I still don't think so.
It's entertaining TV.
It's very good television. Yeah. So I would recommend anybody to check it out.
Dude, it's like, for the first time, the longest time, I never felt this
suspense.
Yeah, as soon as the episode came out, I was like, come on, I have to watch it.
Yeah, same. I wouldn't give it more than a day.
Yeah.
Except for the last episode, I had to wait a day.
Yeah. Well, we were busy.
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend checking out the HBO TV show. You would definitely recommend Doomsday Clock.
I would highly recommend watching the Ultimate Cut as well.
Absolutely.
The Ultimate Cut is one of the best.
Tell us if you guys have seen Watchmen. Put a comment down there. If you've not seen Watchmen, if you have any questions for us, let us know. And we'll be doing another episode probably on Batman.
Yeah.
In the next couple of days.
Yeah. If we have time. If not,
we'll do it next year.
We'll probably do a decade in review because I think we'd like to cover everything pop culture related from 2010 to 2019. I think there's
been so much.
Yeah.
So that's it from us, and please keep an eye out for the next episode of Popcorn Culture.